application for 2013, and this morning there was a seminar on the outcomes portion. I understand there were a couple of glitches there, so there'll be a redo of that webinar on Monday, and Chrystie sent out all that information to you already. I am not able currently to see a list of attendees or see questions or such as they come up, so Chrystie is going to be handling that for me. So if you'll just be patient, raise your hand, type in questions as they come up, and as we take a break in between each page, I'll pause periodically to handle any questions that come up. To start with, just as a brief overview, y'all have received the application. We've changed the format somewhat and just the appearance of the documentations this year. However, we haven't changed the content a whole lot. So while you will need to kind of refamiliarize yourself with the layout of the documents, they're laid out landscape instead of horizontally, and there's a couple small changes like that, but in essence, the information is really the same. We've added a cover page, which is what we've got up right now, on Attachment D only. Attachment D is the agency budget, and we did a focus group through the agency partnership team and had several different organizations, agencies that came and met with us when we were still working on the format of this year's application. And one of the ideas or suggestions that came up was a way for them to provide additional information that may be helpful that wasn't asked for specifically elsewhere in the budget portion of the application. The bulk of the narrative in our current application relates to outcomes and program activities. It doesn't relate to budget. There's not a whole lot of opportunity for narrative discussion around the budget. So what we did is just provide you a free form page that'll act as a cover page for your budget section, for your agency budget Attachment D. And this is optional. You are not required to complete this page if you feel that your budget is self-explanatory or you're able to provide all the information you want in the other sections throughout the other sections of the application, the budget portion of the application. However, this page is here for any information you want to include. Many of you have some unique funding scenarios, or you have relationships with your corporate designation through, district oversight or national oversight, or you've got other branches, or you've got aren't united with part of your overall agency budget but not in the program budget. There's just a zillion reasons why you may want to provide some additional narrative or dialogue that provides further explanation to your budget than what's allowed for elsewhere in the application. I would encourage you to be cautious with use of this. It is free form. It is whatever you want to include here. I would suggest you, again, are cautious to make sure it's information that's pertinent. It's information that's clearly spelled out so that this page doesn't end up providing more confusion than clarification when it comes to the panel discussion. Again, this is a new page this year. We hope it's really helpful to you as agencies. We hope it's really helpful to our panel members in understanding what is behind this page in the applications in terms of budget information. But just please, please, please use this to your advantage and not to your disadvantage. Don't include information in here that isn't perhaps specifically relevant to your United Way application, so we don't end up getting caught up in a dialogue about some information that's on this page that doesn't really have any bearing to what the panel members should be paying attention to in reference to your United Way budget. So we hope you find this helpful, and we look forward to receiving feedback after this year's application process as to how this pans out for both the agency's perspective and then from our panel members' perspective. But this is new, and just use at will, but with some caution, with some discretion to make sure that the information you're providing here is helpful to you and to our panelists. Chrystie, at this time, are there any questions that are coming up, anything that we need to cover as it relates to this page or anything I've mentioned so far?
It's Joe is saying that there is a lot of feedback that is being received and trying to work that out. But other than that, I don't see any other questions. Let me just see if there are any hands raised real quick.
Okay,
Yes,
I was
ma'am.
getting some feedback earlier, but I'm not now on my end. Are y'all still getting feedback?
I have several questions. Mary Sile has asked a question. Let me go ahead and click. Mary, I'm going to click on you to unmute you so you can ask your question.
Yeah, I didn't
Mary?
ask a question. I don't know.
Oh, your hand is raised. Okay, well, let me go ahead and click that off then.
I didn't raise
And
my.
I'm gonna go.
I didn't do that. I don't.
Okay. Well, it showed your hand raised, so let me go ahead and click off of that, and I will.
Yeah, I don't know why that did that. I haven't touched the computer.
I will go ahead and handle it, and I'm gonna mute you back. I don't see any other hands raised at this minute, Holly.
Okay, let's go ahead and click on the next tab, the revenue and expense summary. Okay. This is what you have historically seen as the first page of your Attachment D application, and this is the summary of your organization. Attachment D relates to your agency, so we're still talking about the agency level information at this point. So this revenue and expense summary is will provide the summary information of the revenues and expenses that relate to your agency operation. And when we were doing the focus group, there were lots of questions about why we did or didn't allow capital expenditures, and we didn't reflect depreciation. There were certain things that we didn't want on the application that caused it not to tie to your audit, and we're aware of that. We recognize that what goes into this budget, this portion of the application, what we're asking for budget data, is not a complete audit. That's why we ask for your audit separately. That information that relates to if you've got allowance for doubtful accounts on pledges receivable, or if you've got capital expenditures or depreciation expense, or things that have to do with management of your organization's assets or receivables, we're not asking for that in this budget, and we don't want to see it in this budget. That's intentional. What we really want you to provide here as the agency budget is a clear financial picture of what it takes to make your agency run, where your money comes from and where it goes in the simplest format. That doesn't mean this needs to be purely cash basis for those of you who are accountants. We want it to reflect your books in whatever format you keep them, cash or accrual, but we just want it to reflect what the panelists really need to get an understanding of from your application is where are your revenue sources, where do you get your money from, and what are your expenses? What does it take to make your organization run? And so in kind of the simplest, briefest explanation of what should be included in here is the total income and then total costs of your agency operation. This should be your entire agency. Even if there are portions of your agency operations that are not funded by United Way, this must be a picture of your entire agency operations so that our panelists understand the overall financial makeup of your organization. This page you will find as you're working on it, if you haven't done so already, this particular tab is locked. You will not be able to put any information into this page, into this worksheet directly. All the information that will be filled into this will be filled in as you fill in the detailed information on the next several tabs. So this page you shouldn't have to do anything with. What we've done is we've locked the cells this year so that y'all can't inadvertently type over formulas and cause errors as page transmits from one page to the other. So this page will completely autofill as you complete the detailed tabs that make up this application. One significant change in this year, Chrystie, let me see if I can scroll up here a little bit. We are only asking for 3 years of financial information. I believe this was shared as a change in yesterday's overview training. We've always historically asked for 4 years. One of the questions that was asked by our agencies is, why do you need 4 years? And our question was, well, it's just what we've always asked for. So we trimmed it down. We want 2011 actual, so we have 1 year of actual budget information. 2012 budget, so that should be this year's operating budget for your organization. Because we're in 2012, that budget should already be approved in place, so you should be able to provide us with that information. And then 2013 proposed. And this is the funding year for which you're applying for United Way money. So that's why we need the 2013 proposed agency budget, and that'll be the year for which you're requesting United Way funding, is 2013. So your 3 years information should be 2011, 2012, 2013. It should be your organization's operational or fiscal year. It does not have to be a calendar year. So for those of you who are on a fiscal year other than the 12-month calendar year, it should be your fiscal year ending 2011, your fiscal year ending 2012, and your fiscal year ending 2013. Okay? So we've eliminated 1 year. You only have to provide 3 years worth of data on this year's application. Any questions or comments, Chrystie?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that the participants saw that over here on the right, the furthest right-hand side is a variance section. This is also a new column. In years past, we had a box, I believe it was on page 7, asking for agencies to explain any variances that were less than 10 or greater than 10%. This is now part of an actual part of the budget, and this variance will be calculated automatically for you as you enter details into the other sections of the budget. And if there is, and it'll automatically calculate, and if there is any variances of greater than 10%, and as we go to the next page, you'll see a line for an explanation. You must provide an explanation for all variances greater than 10%.
Okay, so go ahead and take us to the next page. We'll take a look at that.
Okay, let me just do a quick check if there's any questions. Okay, so it's saying that there's feedback only when I'm talking. Is that still the case, Jeff? Oh, okay. Kit Bruce has a question for you, Holly, and I'm going to unmute you, Kit, so that you can talk. Kit, can you hear us? Kit, can you hear us? Your hand was raised with a question. Okay, I have unmuted you, but I'm...
Okay. I don't hear anything. Let's go ahead with the next tab, Chrystie, and if that person has a question, they can raise their hand again. We'll give it another try after we go over this page.
Okay, hold on one second. Jim McCormick also had a question about the previous information that you provided. Jim, can you hear us?
Yes.
You
Hey,
can
Jim.
ask your question. Jim, go ahead and ask your question.
I'm not hearing you.
Jim, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you've got the floor now. Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's showing your hand raised.
I must have hit it by accident.
Okay, Holly, you had already moved it to the revenue and expenses.
Okay. All right. Now we're on what will be the start of the third page in your application. And this is the revenue and expense detail. Let me see if I can scroll up enough. Okay. All right, this is where you'll actually start putting information in. And the lines that are highlighted are locked, so you will not type in those columns or in those cells at all. What those will do is those will auto-calculate based on information you put in elsewhere. So you'll start by typing in your United Way investment, actual for 2011, budgeted for 2012, and what you're requesting for 2013. And you'll continue on as you go through each of these lines. So for example, on line 3, you'll see contributions and designations. That total is locked. So when you type information in for example, what you received in 2011 from individuals and businesses, that yellow field will auto-calculate. It will calculate the total of your total contributions and designations. And that will be consistent throughout the application. The fields that are yellow, you will not type in. You'll type in your details where it's appropriate below that, and those fields will auto-calculate. So, for example, if you do, government fees and grants, you'll put, ABC federal grant, and as you fill information in, it'll auto-calculate as you go from year to year. And Chrystie had mentioned on the last page there's variance. So what it is calculating is the variance from 2012 to 2013. And what we will want you to do is, if there is a variance that's greater than 10%, then you will provide an explanation over here. You will type in the reason why your grant funding from ABC federal grant went from $12,000 to $15,000 from 2012 to 2013, which is a 25% increase. So you'll put, this is a escalating grant. And sorry, you're going to have to excuse my typos. There's a delay in my typing here, so escalating grant amount automatically increases each year, or whatever your reason is for the variance that's over 10%. If your variance is less than 10%, you're not required to provide an explanation, but you're welcome to if you choose to. Okay? We haven't changed the categories. We haven't changed the information we've requested historically. So you can see you're just going to pretty much provide the same information you have historically provided regarding your revenues, what you get in terms of grant revenues, what you collect in terms of program service fees, et cetera, et cetera. They're the same line items that we've had historically. What is happening as you're working on this is the detail information you provide on this page, as we mentioned, the summary page will autofill. And you'll see the information as you type it in on the detail page, it autofills to that summary page. So you shouldn't have to type anything on the summary page at all. Okay? So this third tab, revenue and expenses, is where you'll begin inputting your budget information. The other major difference, the major change this year from previous years is we are not requiring a zero-based budget. Okay? You will put in what your actual operations, your budgeted operations, your proposed operations you expect to be for each of those years. Let me see if I can get to the bottom here. Okay? So you'll put in all your revenues and expenses on this detailed page, and then you will end up with this on the summary page. It will auto-calculate for you, what your net surplus and or deficit is. Okay? Now that's different. Before we forced you to make it a zero-based budget, and for you to show your net surplus or deficit, we didn't allow you to show a net surplus or deficit. You basically had to force an entry into transfer to or from reserves to make that zero out. We're going to go back to showing what y'all are budgeting as an operational surplus or deficit. This means that y'all are going to have to be prepared to explain a surplus or deficit. If you have a surplus, how are those surplus revenues going to be utilized? So, for example, if you've been receiving United Way funding for 2011-12 and you're asking for 2013, and you've had a surplus every year, the panelists may ask you, why do you need United Way funding if you're running at a surplus every year? If you're projecting a $5,000 surplus, couldn't you just request $5,000 less from United Way and still be able to run your program or run your agency? So you need to think about those surpluses or deficits as they're reflected there, and how that may come across to the panel members as to the necessity for United Way funding for your agency, for your program. The reverse of that is true if you're showing a deficit. Is you may it may prompt some questions about operational efficiencies. It may prompt some questions about sustainability of your agency. You know, how are you offsetting those deficits as you go from year to year? Your answer to a lot of that may have to do with what you keep in your operational reserves, that you're working to build up an operational reserve, or you're pulling money from your operational reserves in order to cover any deficit. But again, once you see, you should know what your net surplus and deficits are as you operate your agencies and as you are putting together these budgets. You need to be able to provide a sound, reasonable explanation for those surplus or deficits, because they definitely will prompt questions from the panel members. Are there any questions on the revenue and expense detail? Again, not any real changes from previous years, except that we are requiring the variance explanations right on this page instead of asking you to provide it in a narrative format on a supplementary page. And then we're no longer requiring the zero-based budgeting. Chrystie, are there any questions that are coming up?
There are, and I just wanted to add that the explanation that Holly was referring to be ready to provide, when we go over page 7, there is a section number 1 specifically talks to the explanation for that.
Correct. There is a place for you to provide that explanation.
Now, Kit, her hand is raised again, so Kit, can you hear us? Kit, if you can hear us and have a question, please go ahead and sit underneath of the question section. I've clicked on your cards and I don't know necessarily if you can hear us. Okay, I'm going to go down to the question section and okay. I'm being told on the question page they can't hear me when I talk. Can everyone hear me when I talk?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why. Holly, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Apparently, the other participants, I'm not really clear, but you are. So I'm going to hand this over, and any questions or additions that I have, you might need to repeat for me.
Okay.
But we can move on. There were no questions specific to the information you just reviewed.
Okay. All right. On this detail page, you'll see that there are 2 sections where you can't type in any information on this detail. It's line item 4 here, special events revenue. It's entirely yellowed out, so you can't type in any information here. And as you go down, here in the salary information, you cannot type in any salary information. The reason for that is you'll provide that detailed information on other pages in this application, and it will roll directly into those lines on this detail. So we'll cover those in just a second. But just wanted to bring that to your attention when you get ready to fill out the application and you see, oh no, I can't fill in my special events information or my salary information. You can, you'll just fill it in on pages as you work through the application. Now here is the salary detail information. This is where you'll type in information that will roll to that detail page. So your totals, as they add up for your salaries here for 2011, 2012, and 2013, will autofill in that details page. So you won't have to type any information there. You'll just have to type it all in here, and it'll total for you. As this is attachment D, which relates to your overall agency, you will need to list every position within your agency, okay, whether or not they are a United Way funded position. This is information about your entire agency. It is acceptable to lump positions together. So for example, if you were going along here and you have, let's see if I'm typing in the right place. Okay, you have your executive director position. Okay, say in 2011 it was a full-time position. You'll type in 1 because that was a full-time position. You had 1 executive director that worked full-time, and you can put in the annual wages that were paid. Okay? For 2012, you have budgeted for that to remain a full-time position at the same salary with no increase. And then say in 2013, it's going to remain a full-time position, but you're going to have an increase to $31,000. Okay? That's how you'll show that position. That means you've got 1 full-time position each for 1 full-time executive director for each year, 2011, 2012, 2013, and you're going to show their actual budgeted and proposed wages. If your organization has several people that are in the same position, say you have social workers, okay? Say in 2011 you had 3 full-time social workers. You could put them all on one line and you could put 3. If they each got paid $20,000 a year, you'd put a total of $60,000. Okay? So you're going to put the totals for those 3 positions because they have the same titles, the same positions. You can lump them together. So you can show 3 social workers for total wages of $60,000. Let's say in 2012 you had to cut back a position. So you had 2 social workers. For a total of $40,000. Okay? And then 2013, you're planning on adding a part-time social worker. Say it's going to be a half-time social worker. They're going to work 20 hours a week. Then you'll fill this in and say, let's see if this is catching up with me. I'm not sure where I'm typing it. You'll have 2.5 people in that position. Okay, 2.5 full-time equivalent people, and your total salaries will be $50,000. Okay, so there's often some confusion about FTEs. There's an explanation up here that shows 1 FTE is an employee who works 40 hours per week. So to determine the FTE, you're going to divide the number of hours an employee works. This needs to be on average what they're expected to work, what their regularly scheduled hours are, and then divide it by 40. So if you work half-time, if you work 20 hours, then you're a 0.5 FTE. If you have a position that works 10 hours a week, then it's a 0.25 FTE. Okay? So you'll continue that format until you've listed all of your positions within your organization. And those positions are totaling down here, your total number of FTEs and your total salaries. That's auto-filling to this detailed page. No. Okay, that's auto-filling to this detail page under salaries, right here. Okay, and then that's auto-filling to your summary page, here. Okay, so your salary information, you're just going to enter one time into the salary details page. And as you make changes to this page, it'll make changes throughout your application consistently. Okay? Any questions on this page, on your salary detail page?
Let me just review that really quick.
Chrystie, if you have any questions, let me know and I'll repeat them.
I don't see any written questions. Let me just check the list to see if there are any hands up. Though that hasn't been working before. I don't know if you keep putting your hand up, or if something's going on, keep getting a hand up for you. Oh, it just went down. I don't see any questions,
Okay.
Holly. There.
If that person's having a hard time, I'm sorry. Okay, Chrystie, no questions?
I don't see any questions, any written questions. I think that's probably the best to go, since the hands keep getting raised and the participants are saying that they're not raising their hands. So I think it would be best for people to type in the questions.
Okay. All right. On to what will be page 7 in your application, and this is your budget narrative. This is the line to which, the area to which Chrystie was referring when I was talking about any surplus or deficit that's shown for your agency on page 1 as a bottom line surplus or deficit for your agency. This is where you'll provide that explanation. So if you're showing surpluses, show how those surplus monies will be used. If you're showing deficits, show how that deficit will be offset by your agency. You need to provide an explanation there. Okay? The next question on this page relates to your overhead calculation. Question number 2. And what we have done is we have actually put the calculation that you need to do right here in this page, on this page. So if you, and you will do a different calculation depending on what version of the 990 you file for your agency. Let me see if I can get to where it will show. Okay. Option 1 is if you file the regular 990. Okay. Then this tells you specifically, you'll pull out your most recently completed Form 990, your most recently filed Form 990. You go to total expenses, which can be found on page 10, line 25, column C, and you'll type that figure in here. Okay? Then what you'll do is go to page 10, line 25, column D, which should be your total program service expenses. Okay, and then you'll go to page 1 of your 990, line 12, and it'll say current year, so the year for which your 990 was completed, whatever that is, and you'll fill that in. Okay? So you'll take those numbers directly off of your 990 that you're attaching to your application, your most recently filed 990, and you'll fill in this data directly off the 990, and it will calculate your overhead percentage. So this says that the overhead percentage for this organization would be 10%. And all it's doing is taking the data off of your 990. It's saying if it costs a total of X to operate your organization, and out of that, this amount goes towards your program expenses, then if you divide that by your total revenue, that's what calculates your overhead. Okay, actually the difference between your program services and your total expenses, the difference is your overhead. Okay, so for everybody that files a regular Form 990, this is the section you need to complete. If you file a 990 EZ, okay, then you will not fill out that first section, you'll fill out this section. It tells you specifically on your 990 EZ which line you go to, okay, for your total expenses, which line you go to for your program service expenses, okay. It's the same exact calculation, it just is the numbers are found in different places on your on the 990 depending on which version of the 990 you're filing. And then you'll put in your total revenues. Okay, so if you're the same organization filing a 990 EZ versus a 990, you're going to get the same overhead calculation. So we're using the same type of calculation, it's just we're guiding you exactly to where you need to find those numbers on your 990 or your 990 EZ. Okay, for those organizations whose annual budgets are so small that they do not have to file a 990 or 990 EZ, and historically we haven't had any of those, but we included it on here just to be safe so we don't come up with those questions. If you just have to file the 990 postcard, then you'll go to the Secretary of State website, look up your organization, and provide us with the overhead that the Secretary of State reports for your organization. Okay? So you will need to know which version of the 990 your agency files. You should know that because you have to attach a copy of it to your application, and then you'll go find these specific numbers from your 990 and fill them in, and it'll calculate your overhead percentage. All right? And that's the only information that's on this page, page 7, is where you'll provide a narrative explanation of your surplus or deficit, and then you're at an agency level, and then you'll provide us with your annual overhead calculation. Okay, any questions on that, Chrystie?
Just check. I don't see any questions that were written.
Okay. Last but not least, we have page. Okay, we have page 8, which is special events tab, and this is where you'll provide us the detail of the special events that your organization is planning to hold in 2013. Okay, on this form, you'll give us the same information you provided historically. Again, it's just in a different format, a different layout. You're going to give us the planned date of the event because we're asking for this information for your year for which you're requesting funding for 2013. What is the planned date of the event? If you don't have an exact date, you just know it's going to be sometime in March, you can just put March 2013. That's okay. If you're not even sure which month yet, you can put spring 2013. The only time that you need to be really explicit if those dates are anywhere close to United Way's community campaign period, which is September 1st to October 31st. So there shouldn't be any events that are listed for September or October. And if you have an event that will take place in the fall, I would strongly, strongly suggest you not just type fall in here, that you put it's either going to be in August, which would technically be summer, or in November. Okay? But other than that, as long as if you don't know the exact specific date for an event that's set yet, it's okay just to put the month or the general time frame in which it'll be held. You can put a date range, somewhere between April 1st and April 20th is fine. So that's the planned date of the event. Again, these are for the funding year 2013. You'll put the title of the event, a description of the event, how many of your staff are involved, how many volunteers are you, and expenses of event. And this form will auto-calculate that total is from special event. Down here at the bottom. So if you fill in January 2013, you're going to have event ABC. Okay, it's going to have total income of $10,000, and it's going to cost you $2,000 to produce. Then it's going to calculate that your net profit off of that event is $8,000. If in June 2013 you have event XYZ, that brings you total revenue of $25,000, and it costs you $8,000 to produce. Then it's going to calculate that you make $17,000 off of that. So the 8 plus the 17 means your total net profit from special events is $25,000. These totals here, your total projected net profit, will carry over here to your revenue and expense detail page. Up here at the top, it's going to show $35,000. That's your gross revenue from special events. Sorry, not your net. It'll show your gross from special events to be this number here, $35,000. We'll carry forward to this page for your special events revenue. And then the $10,000 in special events expense. We'll fill in over here under special events expense. Now that's a change on this year's application. Again, that's a change that was requested through the agency partnership, through the focus group that we had, was that y'all wanted to be able to show your special event and your fundraising expenses as part of your operating budget expenses instead of netting them out. Before, we required you to show your revenue and expenses on that detail page, but the only number that you filled in on the summary page was your net income from special event. We're now showing your gross income from special event, your expenses related to your fundraising activities or your special events expenses, and it'll net out in the bottom line of your application, of your budget. And those figures carry forward right from the detail page to the summary page. Okay? So special events expenses of $10,000, special events revenue of $35,000. It'll net out to your bottom line for your organization. So you're going to be asked to provide the details of all your events for 2013. And then for the 2 other years, for 2011 and 2012, you'll just give us your total revenue, special events revenue for 2011, and your total special events expenses for 2011, and those totals will carry forward to the related years on your budget detail and on the budget summary. So you won't have to provide us a detail for 2011-12. You just have to provide us with the total aggregate numbers of your total revenue and your total expenses for your special events activities. Okay, any questions on that, Chrystie?
Let me just check. Okay, I see any hands raised, so let me go to the question section to see if anybody has typed anything in. I don't see any additional questions. Holly, could you go to the very first page though and let everyone know if they type in their agency name at the very of the first page, that it will then carry through to all the other pages?
Oh, okay. What Chrystie is saying, that this is also set up so that when you type your agency name, okay, where are they? I'm not sure. Hang on. Okay. Yeah, so you'll go to this cell on your very, very first page, your budget cover page, and you'll type your agency name in once. You'll have to type right over where it says, please type agency name in this space. Okay. Okay, so you'll type in that you are ABC agency, and then throughout your entire application, it will carry forward. You'll see here it shows your ABC agency. On the next page, it shows your ABC agency. So you only have to do that one time, and it'll carry throughout your entire application. I told Ronnie to get a next page. Okay. So that way you only have to type it one time, and you don't have to remember to fill it in every page, but you do have to remember to fill it in once. You do have to make sure your agency name shows up on this application. If you recall, our wonderful panel members walk around with those huge notebooks of documentation of all the agencies that they're visiting that day, and as they're flipping through those notebooks, if they can't clearly see your agency name on the documents that they're looking at, they tend to become confused. So please make sure you fill in that information on that very first page, and then it's set up so it'll automatically carry forth in all of the other pages that are related to your organization. Chrystie, is there anything else that I overlooked?
I don't think so. I think that was a very thorough explanation.
Okay, so in summary, this is attachment D. It relates to your agency budget. It should be the annual operating budget for your entire agency. The changes are, you now have this budget cover page. Please use it wisely and to your advantage. You will not type in anything in this revenue and expense summary page, okay, because it's going to auto-calculate for you. You'll provide all your detailed budget information, and starting on page 3 of your application, and it'll be page 3 will be your revenues, page 4 and 5 will be your expenses. They are not on separate tabs. I forgot to point this out earlier. It's all right here on this tab. It's pages 3, 4, and 5 are your revenues and your expenses. You just type it all in, and it'll print out like it's supposed to. Okay, so you just keep on going here. All of your salary information you only have to enter once. On the salary detailed page, on the budget narrative page, page 7, is where you provide an explanation as to your organization's surplus or deficit. And you will only fill out one of the 3 options related to your overhead percentage, depending on what version of the 990 you file. And then your special events information, you just enter once here, and the pertinent budget numbers will roll forward into your application. So overall, our goal was to really streamline and simplify the budget portion of the application. Working with a focus group, we hope we have accomplished that. We haven't made a whole lot of changes to the information we're requesting from you. So if you've got your prior year applications, They should tie pretty closely to the budget details that we've asked for in the past. We did remove 1 or 2 lines, like things that ask for the transfer to or from reserves, because we're no longer looking for that. And we did remove where we asked for depreciation, because we don't want you to fill that in there anyways. We don't know why we asked for it and then just told you not to give it to us, so we just took it off the application. So the only changes you should find to the line items of the application have to do with things that we've just done away with and are not asking for this year. And then we have separated the special event revenue and expense. So you provide us the gross revenue and then total expenses, and then they net out to what you were reporting before, your net income from special events. Okay, attachment E is your program budget. This will take us about 2 minutes, unless there are any questions. Yep.
There are a couple questions. Gwen Banfield from Access Network. If we would please email your example of that one page.
I'm sorry, Chrystie, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Can you hear me, Holly?
Yep.
Okay. Gwen had asked if we could email an example of the salary page, which I'm not too clear on. I don't understand what she's meaning. It's the salary page that you just described. Is that what you're asking for?
Okay, Gwen, have you unmuted Gwen?
Yeah, that's exactly what she's asking. Hold on 1 second and let me just mute her so that we can hear her. Gwen, you are unmuted. Can you go ahead and talk?
Yes.
Hey Gwen, it's Holly. What can we do for you?
I just wanted, I can't copy your example, so for later reference, I just wanted it to be able to print out the time.
Okay. So Chrystie, if you'll just make sure that we do that where I just typed in, this is enough information for you, Gwen, the few samples I've filled in here?
Yes.
Okay. If you'll just make sure you email that out to Gwen following the webinar.
Oh, well.
Because they can't print out or email or say what we're doing here live on the webinar. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. And then also, Joe suggested that we mention to everyone that can print out this whole item, this whole document as one if they select to print all active all worksheets.
To print this whole document as one?
Yeah, because we had several questions last year from agencies. They were going into each tab and hitting print, where they could just go into the print menu and just click on select all, the entire workbook.
Okay. I believe in it. I'm just going to repeat in case y'all are still having trouble hearing Chrystie. There's an option under print, so you don't have to go to each tab and print it individually. There's a print option with Excel, which allows you to choose to print the entire workbook. And that's a simpler way to get the entire application printed out for you, or the budget portion, each budget portion. So you can print attachment D all at one time, and then you can print attachment E all at one time. Okay. Any other questions, Chrystie?
Let me just check real quick. I don't see any other questions that were posed.
Okay. Then we're going to cover attachment E in about 2 minutes because it's exactly the same as attachment D. You just need to understand that this attachment, attachment E, as it always has historically, relates just to your program budget. It's all the same information. It just relates to the program for which you're requesting United Way funding. If you're requesting United Way funding for multiple programs, you'll have multiple attachment E's. So you'll need to do an attachment E for each program for which you're requesting United Way funding. as on the previous attachment, attachment D, if you go in here and one time you type your agency name and one time you type your program name, it'll complete throughout the entire attachment, throughout attachment E. You will have to retype your agency name. It doesn't, you typed it in once in attachment D, you'll have to type it in once in attachment E. Okay, and it'll continue with that within the entire attachment. We made all the same changes, so these are exactly the same. The workbook works exactly the same as far as pulling numbers from page to page within your workbook. So you'll put your program detail information here. It'll pull to the summary page here. You'll put your program salary information in the salary details page. These are just the positions that are related to this program. So when we were talking about our previous sample, if you have a position that is shared amongst multiple programs and only a portion of that position is allocated to this program, then you'll just reflect the portion that is allocated. So if you have, for example, a social worker, I'm going to go to my handy standby position. Now maybe this is a full-time position, but only half of it is allocated to this program. So this person works full-time for you. They work 40 hours a week, but only half of their time is allocated to this program. In this program budget worksheet, you'll put that for this program, it is a half-time position. So you'll put 0.5. Okay? And then whatever half of their salary is, you'll put in here. Whatever portion of their salary is allocated to this program. Now, if it's a position that's completely dedicated to this program, you'll put that it's a full-time position, and you'll put 1 FTE, and you'll put the full salary related to that position here. But this does allow for you to show that you have positions within your organizations often who are shared across multiple programs. You're just going to put the portion of that position that relates specifically to this program. Okay, so just remember, attachment D is your entire agency, everything that has to do with your agency. Attachment E is specific program by program. And that's the same as it was last year. That's not a change. Okay, the budget narrative for this program it should be basically the same as the budget narrative for your agency. Is if you show a surplus or deficit as it relates to this program's budget, you'll need to provide a detailed and reasonable explanation as to why that program runs at a surplus or deficit and how that surplus or deficit will be utilized. Many of y'all that have multiple programs within your agencies have some that run at a surplus, some programs that run at a surplus and some that run at a deficit, and that may change from year to year depending on the revenue you're receiving for different programs. It's okay to put in here that this program runs at a deficit because it is subsidized by other programs within our agency which run at a surplus, and those surplus funds are used to cover the loss in this program. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Or it's perfectly fine to say that this program runs at a surplus, and we use the surplus funds from this program to offset deficits in other programs within our agency. You're just going to have to be prepared and understand from the panel member's perspective, they're going to want to know exactly how United Way funds are being utilized. And if they're funding this program with United Way dollars and surplus dollars from this program are going to subsidize other programs, then you just need to be prepared to talk about why United Way dollars are needed to fund this program when this program is funding other programs. And then the transfers. If this program operates at a deficit, why aren't you asking for more United Way money? Or is this program sustainable in the long term? Why is your agency choose to subsidize a program that operates at a deficit? Are there opportunities to bring in more funding or cut expenses so it doesn't operate at a deficit? Just need to be prepared to have that dialogue with the panel members. Okay? We did not provide a budget cover page at the program level. because you really have a lot of room to type here. So if you find that there's some ancillary information that you want to provide, I'm kind of throwing this out there on the fly, Chrystie, so don't have a heart attack on me. I would say, that budget narrative page would be appropriate to talking about anything. Make sure you address specifically what will be done with a surplus or deficit, and then additionally, if there's other information that you really want to provide panel members as it relates to your program budget versus your agency budget, you can do so here. And that's it. I'm not going to go through this attachment in detail because it works exactly the same way as your other attachments. This one is for your agency and one is for your program or programs if you're requesting funding for multiple programs. I do want to point out that if you're requesting funding for multiple programs, your total funding requested, if you add up the funding requested for each program, what those individual funding requests total to should be the amount that is shown on your agency budget. So if you've got 3 programs and you're asking for $10,000 per program, on attachment D, it should show that you're asking for a total of $30,000 from United Way. Also, again, it should work out this way. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that if your program is a part of your agency, then your program budget in no area should be larger in terms of revenue or expenses than what is shown as the total on your agency budget. So again, you're going to come across questions if you show that you're getting $100,000 in program service fees to fund program A, but then when a panel member looks at your agency budget, it shows that your entire agency is only getting $50,000 in program service fees. You're going to want to know, how does that work? Okay, it looks, something's not right there. If you're getting in more income or recording more expenses for a specific program than what your entire agency budget reflects. Okay. We're going to wrap up a few minutes early, I hope, which I don't think anybody will mind on a Friday afternoon. Unless there are any other questions, or Chrystie or Joe, you've got any other information you want to make sure that we share before we wrap up here?
I do. Joe did send a couple questions over my way. She wanted to make sure, and if I can just preface that, but Joe Smith is the form guru that created the new forms, and you can reach her at 837-2000. She'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have, but she did want to explain that you guys can add lines, and it will not affect the line number and what numbers are carried over. But it might affect the pagination when you print it out.
Okay. Just to repeat, in case anybody's having trouble hearing Chrystie, Joe Smith is who we owe all our kudos and thanks to. She made these new fabulous autofill forms, so you only have to enter information once, and it magically appears everywhere it's supposed to. She's also the one that made all these formulas work, so you only have to enter a number once, and it calculates and does everything it's supposed to. You can add lines as needed, so if there's not enough lines to show all the individual grants that you get, you can enter those lines. It won't affect the formulas. However, it may affect how the pages print, and that's okay. That's all right. It's no problem. Her number, Joe Smith's number, everybody get a pencil and write this down, is 837-2000. Did I get that right, Chrystie?
837-2000, yeah.
Yep, 837-2000. And she said she's more than happy if you seem to run across a problem or a glitch and you're not sure, something doesn't appear to be adding correctly, or you're not quite sure how to navigate these forms correctly. She's happy to help with those questions. Now, she can tell you how to make the forms work correctly. She can't tell you what your budget should be for something. She can't tell you how many of your special events you need to list. You need to list all of them. She can't help you with content, but she can help you with making sure it fills in the appropriate forms appropriately, correctly. Okay, Chrystie, anything else?
I do not see any others. Let me just check the attendee list, make sure nobody has raised their hand. I do see Gwen's hand raised again, so I'm going to unmute her. Gwen, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to raise it.
Okay, no problem.
Then I think that all of the questions have been answered that have been posed.
Okay, then that concludes our budget presentation. I wish you all best of luck with United Way applications. And, you know, Chrystie is always a phone call away, but again, you know, the content and information you need to put in your applications is up to you. Chrystie can help with some technical questions, and Joe is the forms guru if as needed. All right, y'all have a great Friday afternoon and a wonderful weekend, and we'll be seeing you soon.
And I did just want to add that the information for the outcomes webinar, the redo is going to be happening on Monday from 2:30 to 4.
All right, thanks, Chrystie. I'll catch up with you later.
All right, thanks everyone.